You start off with unrealistic optimism of, yay, I'm going to make the six figures in 3 months and have tons of clients beating my door down my door. But then reality kicks in a little bit and you still have to find your way. And this is when most people tend to exit entrepreneurship, go back to the full-time secure job. And when I had those moments where I was in the valley of despair of what have I done? I've ruined my career. What made me think I could ever be a coach? It was coming back to what is important for me in my work and in my life, and identifying those things and thinking about, okay, option B is go back to the corporate job, but that is not aligned with anything that is important to me.
Welcome to this episode of the Storypreneurs podcast. Today we have Bianca Tate, a transformational coach who helps people navigate life and career transitions. She's guided professionals through big moves, whether it's changing careers, moving abroad, or stepping into entrepreneurship. Bianca helps entrepreneurs find clarity, confidence, and the courage to take bold actions. In today's conversation, we will explore resilience, empowerment, and how strategic clarity can shape success. Bianca, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Seth. I'm so excited to be here today.
So do you want to just start by telling us how you got into all of this and what's exciting for you right now? What do you got working on right now?
Yeah, happy to. It's been a little bit of a journey. So I'm currently living in my fourth country. So I've navigated moves abroad, background. I've always had that travel bug. So I've traveled to over 45 countries, mostly solo. Some of that has been due to my previous career. Some of that has just been, hey, let's pack a bag and check out this place. But what brought me into coaching is my background is in corporate leadership. So I spent 14 years leading teams in operations and logistics. The last 8 years of that, I've helped companies like Lidl, Uber, Amazon expand into new markets. And the funny thing is, even though my life looked great on paper, right? I was a world traveler. I had these great job titles. I was leading impactful projects for big names. Deep down, I was really still struggling with anxiety and burnout. And I constantly had this nagging feeling that even though everything looked great on paper, it wasn't aligned with what I wanted. I had actually known for 6 years that I wanted to work for myself, but to be perfectly honest, I was stuck in fear, almost stuck in that comfort zone, too afraid to take a step, too afraid to trust myself to navigate entrepreneurship. And most of all, I kind of lacked clarity on what it is that I wanted to do. So through working with a coach myself and taking a sabbatical and really just doing a lot of inner work, everything aligned for me. And I realized that my skills of previously mentoring people and even being that go-to person for friends, combined with my experiences and also having the courage to make bold moves, really aligned with coaching and guiding and inspiring others to do the same. So the day I decided that I wanted to pursue this career, I had already signed up for a coaching program to make sure I have all my credentials. Once I had fully decided, it was like the universe shoved me off the ledge, because at that point I was hit with my third mass redundancy in like 2 years. So it was like 3 days after I wrote in my journal, I've decided this is aligned, this is my ikigai, this is what I am going to do. The universe pretty much went, okay, off the ledge you go. And I was faced with mass redundancy, and that's when my entrepreneurial journey started.
I think you and I have a kind of a similar background. I think ever since I started career marketing, I've just been faced with redundancies left, right, and center. And it isn't until kind of the last redundancy that I was like, I need to make something for myself. Even that you mentioned like the entrepreneurial journey, a lot about it is about discovery, isn't it? For most entrepreneurs, the clarity isn't always immediate. So what are some of the key questions that entrepreneurs can ask themselves to know that they're on the right path?
Well, I would say before even, yeah, and one of the questions that every coaching session starts with. And that also helped me finally figure out what it is exactly that I wanted to do. It sounds so simple, but it takes some work, is getting clear on your why and knowing your values. So, why do you want to work for yourself? Why do you want to follow this certain path, become a coach, whatever your desire is? And then, what values do you associate with that? And again, it sounds so simple, and we always talk about values, but not many of us take the time to really sit down, put pen to paper, and write this out. Once I did that work and I didn't just list, 20 values, I really drilled down to what are my core values. I realized how my previous career really wasn't aligned with what mattered to me and how coaching was. So I think the first thing anybody should do is really figure out their why. What is important for them in this journey and what values are associated with that. And I think the questions that you need to ask yourself is also, what does success in entrepreneurship really look like for you? I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, I want my business to make a lot of money. But there's so much more you should be asking yourself. Like, what does your day look like? How many hours are you working? How many employees do you have? It's really just getting down into the details and painting that picture.
It's very personal, isn't it? It's one of the things that I've discovered talking with other people on this podcast and other, I guess, coaches as well. It is a very personal journey. It's not one size, one shoe fits all kind of thing. For some people, success might look like making a lot of money. For some other people, success might look like being location independent and having the time to be able to enjoy your life. For others, it could be, that education element, that leadership element that they, and I think it's super personal. And the reason why I started this podcast, Bianca, is because I've been seeing a lot of, I guess ads online saying, oh, if you're an entrepreneur, this is what success looks like. And if you buy my course, I can get you to 6 figures in 3 months. And I just think it's just so far removed from reality that it gets hooked a lot of people onto that. And I think the reality is completely different. Being your own boss is completely different. Being an entrepreneur is not that glamorous. It comes with a lot of responsibilities. And I really like the fact that you said, what is your why? I think for me, it took me a while to find that why. I was a bit hooked on that vision of success and making a lot of money. And then I realized at some point that why, it was completely misplaced. And it wasn't that. And it was taking me down the path that I had no ambition to go down. Waking up. And what people don't realize is when you wake up and you're not driven by your real why, you will have tough days. Your clients are going to be calling you. Your teams are going to be coming you with problems. And sometimes you will fail to move forward because your why is misplaced. So I want to talk about that actually. Could you explain to us what values actually mean? Because I think some people mix values with personal traits or characteristics. How does one find their value? You talked about like writing it out loud, but if I were to find my why and find out what really drives me, my passions, where do I start, and what do you mean by values?
Yeah, so great question. So I always say, not to quote Simon Sinek here, but start with why. Because writing out that sentence, for example, okay, why do I want to be a coach? Well, I want to inspire others with my own journey. I want to support them in their growth, but I also want to be in charge of, like, have the freedom, but also have financial abundance. So this is kind of like my why I went into entrepreneurship: to inspire, to have freedom over my time, and to have financial abundance. So looking at your sentence, okay, I maybe made this one a little too easy as an example, but writing out your why, even if that's, say, I want to support my family or I want to do more meaningful work. When you're looking at that sentence, you can start pulling out the values. And like you said, values are not necessarily your personal characteristics, but they're kind of like your North Star, your guiding force, your compass. It is what has you persevering in times of hardship. For example, integrity is such an important value for so many people, right? It can be a characteristic, but it's also something that in the face of a difficult decision or in the face of, having to pick path A or B, somebody who really values integrity is going to look for that, let's call it feature in their choice. Also, for me, and you were speaking a little bit about the hardships of entrepreneurship and especially the beginning, right? I think every entrepreneur hits that valley of despair. You start off with unrealistic optimism of, yay, I'm going to make the 6 figures in 3 months and have tons of clients beating down my door. But then reality kicks in a little bit and you still have to find your way. And this is when most people tend to exit entrepreneurship, go back to the full-time secure job, but being clear on your why and knowing what your values are. So for me, mine are abundance, freedom, and impact. And when I had those moments where I was in the valley of despair of what have I done? I've ruined my career. What made me think I could ever be a coach? It was coming back to what is important for me in my work and in my life, and identifying those things and thinking about, okay, option B is go back to the corporate job, but that is not aligned with anything that is important to me. So even though I was having difficult moments at certain times and doubting the entrepreneurial journey, going back to those core values of what's really driving me helped me persevere in those times of hardship, because I knew if I went back the other way, I would be completely unaligned and unfulfilled. So values are also the indicators of what fulfillment means for you. I've definitely noticed in clients that I've coached and even my own journey, the times I was facing burnout, the times I was truly unhappy or felt like I had no fulfillment, I wasn't living aligned with my values. So I'm not sure if I really put it as simply as you wanted to, but I just kind of dove into that.
No, 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 it's fine.
Yeah.
I really, really like that example. I guess it would be good to understand how does one go about and find their values, right? For someone who's been driven by the completely wrong idea, and they want to actually take a step back and really
Hmm.
understand, okay, this does not make me happy. I make 6 figures now. This does not make me happy. And I've put myself down this rabbit hole. How does one take that step back and really reconnect with themselves and find those values that are truly meaningful to them? Is there any tricks, maybe journaling, maybe meditation, any guidance from your professional opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think different tools work for different people all the time. I think, a lot of times we talk about sport, meditation, journaling. For me, all of that is a form of meditation and introspection. But one tool that I use for my clients that's more visual and kind of easier to digest is we take a look at like the holistic life map. And we break down your life into the different categories. It's called Wheel of Life. There's so many different names of it, but where we take a look at, say, okay, your career, your health, your family, friends, your love life, your social life, your growth. And we just start at least looking at little chunks in your life. Like we just say, okay, what is important to you health wise? Or growth wise, right? Is it continuous development? And you start rattling off different things, right? And then we dive into, okay, well, what does growth actually mean for me? And we just kind of peel back the layers slowly. So it really, you just keep asking yourself, like, what does this mean for me? Abundance is a great one that has so many different definitions for different people. So if you think about your career and you say, okay, abundance is important to me, and you start asking, okay, well, what does abundance actually mean for you? Does it mean, abundance in time? Does it mean abundance in cash in the bank? Um, you know, just ask yourself, what is important for me in this area of my life? Write it down, make sure you're clear on the meaning, and then ask yourself, okay, why is this important to me? And once you really are just like, okay, this is it, that's when you know you've arrived at your value. So, for example, the abundance in time, right? If you ask yourself, why is that important to me? You might be like, well, I don't get to spend enough time with my kids, for example. So you're drilling down a little bit more where the true value might be like your family, right? Or quality time, even though you started with abundance. So you kind of just start in these different categories, you drill down. And the reason we do this in different areas of your life is because everything is interconnected. If you're only focused on your career, then it's very likely that your love life, your social life, and maybe even your health may be lacking. If you're only focused on your health, then maybe you're not really paying attention to your career. So it's very important to take that holistic view. You'll start noticing probably some trends along your values as well. And then from there, you can really drill it down to what are my core values of something that touches every area of my life.
So for someone who's listening to this podcast or watching this podcast and they're looking at, okay, I understand that what I'm doing right now is not working for me, and they want to make a leap and change, whether that be into a new career or, or a new job or a new, or start a business. What advice would you give someone who's standing at those crossroads, unsure if they should take the leap?
Yeah, so I feel like that is all of us at some point in time, right? Again, we've already talked enough about knowing your why and your values. So I think no matter what big decision you're facing in life, that is always the starting point because it guides you. And when times get hard, it helps push you through. The other advice that I would have is ask yourself if you already know that this is something you want to consider. Maybe you're a little scared because of security or the risk or what others will think, is really take a moment to reflect. And journaling, again, is a great tool to ask yourself, what is stopping you, right? Is it the opinion of others? What will people think if I give up my corporate career to become a coach, for example?
Is that it for you?
It was definitely scary for me. Security, all of these things. I had put so much into my career to, really follow something that I was passionate about where you don't know the outcome. It was definitely huge for me. But also, I think it's important to ask yourself, am I running from something or towards something in this journey? Like, is this really something you want to pursue or are you running from something? I have switched jobs before in the past, not because I was running towards the new job of like, oh, this is it, but I was running from the old job basically, but I found myself in the same patterns, right? So I
Same.
think that's an important reflection. And it's not so much a question to ask, but I think if you're standing at this crossroad and you know you want to make the leap, I think it's just so important to prepare yourself as well, to know that this is a journey. There are curveballs, but also recognize that, often it's just us being in our comfort zone that is holding us back. Comfort zone is great. It serves its purpose at times, but growth does not happen in the comfort zone. And at the end of the day, what has gotten me through some of my most difficult decisions, whether that was the decision to move to Portugal or to start working for myself, is really tapping in. I personally do breath work, I meditate, but, some people process things better while on a run. I'm definitely not that person, but, whatever works for you, but ask yourself, would I regret not having tried, right? Or would I regret, failing but being able to say I've tried? And for me, it's this daunting feel. Feel like it's one of my biggest fears is to have regret, and especially regret for not having tried. So I'm okay with failure because I think it's a growth mindset type of thing of it's not necessarily failure because I learn from every mistake I've ever made. I've learned from every path that I've chosen. And maybe if things don't work out in the end, I can look back on my life and say, I don't regret having tried.
Powerful. Right. Actually, I'm the same. I always thought that if this marketing agency thing doesn't work out, I can always go back to having a secure job, which, it's I think something that everyone does at some point. But to live with regret for not having done it, then I think that stays with you for. I think there was a quote or there was a saying that goes like, regret stays with you forever, but fear is temporary. So,
I might have to, jot that one down. I like
yeah,
it. Yes,
yeah.
that's
And
powerful.
this is what I kind of live by. It might be the fear talking,
Mhm.
because you're coming out of that comfort zone and into that sort of, challenge zone as they call it.
Yeah.
But would you like to feel fear for, I think scientifically it's for 90 seconds? If you recognize the emotion, it goes away after 90 seconds. Or would you like to get stuck with regret for the rest of your life? And I speak to a lot of people, and a lot of people say, "Oh, I wish I'd traveled, or I wish I'd started a business, or I wish I'd done this." And it stays with you. It stays with you.
And I think you brought up something great just now as well about always being able to go back. One of the exercises that I do with clients when they're considering making a big move is we face that fear head on, right? Because fear is there, it serves a purpose, right? And it's also there because you're stepping out of that comfort zone. So, what we do is we challenge that fear head on and we say, okay, what is the worst thing that could happen if you do this? And we really go through it and we think about how likely is it that this is actually going to happen. Then we think about, okay, are there some steps you can take to prevent that from happening? Like keeping your network warm, right? If you think you're never going to get another job again, or if you think you're going to spend all your money, set a limit, right? Of when you start looking for jobs or reduce your expenses. There's so many things that we can often do to prevent, all of this worry and spiraling we put ourselves through. But then with the absolute worst case scenario, say I fail, say I spend all my money. Yeah, okay, worst case scenario, I can get another job. I can call my mom and move in with my mom if I need to. But most of the time, most of the things we worry about, one, don't happen. I think it was studied by Cornell University that said 85% of the things worry about don't happen. And out of that 15%, 79, 80% of the respondents actually found that they were able to learn from it or just figure it out. So, like, I just try to remind people how capable they really are. And it says spiraling in the negative. It's like, okay, let's face it. Let's come up with a plan because you're going to be okay most of the time. Like, we are all very resilient, capable. We have resources, most of us. So let's put that on paper and feel more secure about our bold move that we're going to make.
I think that's a really good strategy about building resilience, preparing for that sort of worst case scenario. And even if it might not happen, you've prepared, so you feel more comfortable. What most people forget is that the brain's primary function is to keep you safe,
Mm-hmm.
and it will always go back to what's familiar. And that's so that your comfort zone. And anything outside of that is your brain trying to calculate the risks associated with, going towards that challenge. And I really like what you said about, okay, let's go there. Let's go there and let's really see how frightening that is. And that prompts your brain and prepares it. So then you sort of dip your toes into that challenge zone where you now know that if it happens, you're prepared. Chances are it's not going to happen. Like you said, there is 80 to 90% probability it won't happen. But it's all about feeling confident in the end of the day and making your mind feel at ease. So really like that strategy. Are there any other strategies for building resilience and pushing forward after challenges
I'm
that
going to
you
keep
find?
coming back to it. Clarity. Why are you doing this? What is important to you? Like I said, the valley of despair is real. And that's when most people give up, when they're like, it's not working out. I've been working on this for 6 months. I don't have a client. But again, coming back to what is important to you is critical. Confidence, I think the ability to trust yourself. Again, not having all the answers, but being able to trust yourself enough that you can figure it out no matter what comes your way. Especially in entrepreneurship, there's so much that is not predictable. So often it's a good idea. And again, it sounds like such a simple tool, but write down your strengths, inner and outer. Really reflect on past situations where you've made a bold move or you were in a challenging situation that you came out on top, and think about what got you through that situation. Was it your communication skills? Was it your level of empathy? Was it, some of your hard skills, right? Your ability to problem solve, your ability to lead. And do this for at least 3, 4 different scenarios that come to mind, and you'll start noticing a theme of some of your key inner and outer strengths. And a lot of people are like, well, yeah, I'm a great communicator, but really putting this on paper and tying it to a specific situation where, you had to be a best man at a wedding and you gave the speech and you just totally knocked it out of the park. Really being able to think about these specific situations kind of wires your brain to be like, oh yeah, okay, I can handle this too. So it's really, confidence, I always say, is like a muscle. You need to do exercises, you need to build it. And then the last thing is just having a growth mindset and watching that self-talk. We all make mistakes. We all will continue to make mistakes, myself included. And you could either approach it with, man, I screwed this up again, or whatever, to saying, wow, okay, I missed that. Here's what I'm going to do next time, right? How are you going to pivot from that mistake? What did you learn? Oh, well, I didn't, communicate in the best way, and then this happened. Well, okay, here's what I learned from this. I could take a step back next time. Like, really developing those skills to have that growth mindset and a little bit more gentle self-talk, I think is one of the big keys to resilience. Because instead of beating yourself up when you hit a wall, which you will, you are training yourself of, how am I going to climb over this wall when I hit it?
I think it's very important. Compassion is from what I'm understanding. So you're saying compassion, humility, as well as, self-reflection, and positive self-talk.
Yeah, and reframing, right? Reframing instead of just like problems, or say it's a failed client, failed meeting, as a failure, is just saying, okay, this happened. What am I learning from this and how am I applying it to next time? I think that's a step people often miss. They just dwell on the failure, but they don't necessarily take a moment to say, what did I learn from this? What will I do differently next time?
When it comes to transition, what are some of the common themes that you've seen people struggle with?
Yeah, the discomfort of change. It's,
What? Why is it as humans we don't like change so much? And it's so good for us, right?
I mean, you've already touched on it though, right? The comfort zone. We are wired for survival. Happiness, fulfillment, feeling good is all secondary. And that's why sometimes I refer to the comfort zone as comfortable unhappiness. You have those people that stay in those unhappy relationships. I've heard so many people say, like, oh, well, I would love to apply for another job, but even though I hate my job, it's a good company. So I feel like the biggest challenge I see is if the desire, the drive is not strong enough, people kind of resign to, well, this is the way life is. It's okay the way it is, right? But quite often, especially in coaching, and it's unfortunate, people come to me at the point where they're just like, I can't do this anymore, right? And I've been that person too, hitting that brick wall at work of just struggling, right? Full of anxiety, miserable, where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So I think it's just that resistance to change, being stuck in the comfort zone for individuals, and many wait until, for lack of a better term, they're, cracking in order to seek help. And I think this is where, coaching and therapy also go hand in hand. One, therapy is really about mental health issues and also looking at the past and identifying patterns. Whereas coaching, though, is for those that are ready to make that change and transition. And it's really more forward looking. Like, what has stopped you up until now? How do we get over those hurdles? Where do you want to go? And let's put a plan together to get you there. And with organizations, because I've managed a lot of change in organizations, right? Like, we're opening in a new country, we're carving out a new department. And I think it's the same thing. It's that resistance to change, it's fear, it's out of the comfort zone. People start, worrying. The what ifs start coming up, the doubts, the insecurities. It's almost like a feeling of being threatened, even if you're just building a new department in an organization, because it's out of the routine. But, after that discomfort, right, that's where the learning zone kicks in. And I think being equipped with the proper tools to build a growth mindset, tools to get more clarity, to build confidence, that's when you can start challenging those fears. And that's when you move into that growth zone. So I think it's just people not being equipped with tools to address the fears they have of leaving the comfort zone.
Do you think also having a vision and a direction also helps people move along? Having that sort of end goal. Because what I find when it comes to, working with people as well is when they don't like change so much because they're used to, the comfort zone, but also because they don't know what that new place is going to look like. So do you think having a direction and a vision and an inspiration to lead the people there would help?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you touched on that. I mean, I think that's, again, key, right? The clarity piece, the vision, where are we going? Why? Since I managed a lot of change management, one of the things that made me successful, because I worked with multiple departments, right, to execute a launch or whatever the case was. And it wasn't just, hey, I need you to do this, or we need to do this, because it was always taking the extra time to explain, hey, this is why we need to do this, or this is why I need your help because you have this expertise. Really just taking that extra time in the beginning, of course, where are we heading? Where are we going? What is the North Star, the vision? But then also the why is so important, because I feel like people really need to understand why they need to do something or why they're being asked to do something in order to have some motivation to move towards that.
Do you have any examples, any sort of case studies that you remember working with within your experience that were people were so difficult and in the end they were just so grateful that they've done this?
Well, you said difficult people, and now I'm like thinking back to different roles. No, I'm just kidding. I think one was interesting. I was helping a scale up actually expand into a new international market. And the scale up had the corporate office, but also massive warehouse. And two different activities were being produced in that warehouse. And as part of the expansion strategy, one activity was being outsourced because the company's core skill was the other one. And the other activity was fulfillment, which a lot of different companies could do. And then again, this was from startup to scale up, and this is their first international expansion. So when we had decided to move forward with opening a second location in another country, especially a country with lower labor rates, you can imagine how clear the vision and communication needed to be in order to prevent people from, for lack of a better term, panicking about their jobs, their careers. So I wouldn't say necessarily the people were difficult. I would say it was a very delicate situation to navigate because, in order to build this other warehouse and design the processes and train the new teams, we needed the buy in of the people currently doing it. And these were the same people who might be concerned that their jobs might be at risk. So I would say that took a lot of finesse and excellent communication skills, and also being very clear on our reasoning of why we chose this location, what the vision was, in order to make sure everybody was on board, supporting, but also not freaking out.
Wow, that must have been a very difficult transition for them and for you. I mean, how long does it normally take to work with a client like that?
So it depends where they were at. I worked with this company in designing the strategy and getting investor approval for the expansion and funding. So very beginning phases, and then of course we had a custom built warehouse, which takes time to build, and of course negotiating real estate contracts, hiring teams. So it definitely is industry dependent, of course, size of the project, but at least a year. At least a year.
Wow, a
Yeah.
whole year.
This was an 8,000 square meter warehouse too, by the way. So, yeah, but this
Jeez.
was from, yeah, designing a strategy all the way to execution. And this execution involved, and speaking of communications and difficulties, everyone on the C-level team, all the way down to warehouse team leads that were helping design workstations, to getting the chief commercial officer and the chief operating officer to agree on something. So, yeah, I think, again, clarity, why, vision, it keeps coming up. And it can settle a lot of debates as well.
Amazing. Oh, and that is what you're brilliant in what you do. I mean, I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy that we met.
Me
You're
too.
absolutely astonishing and absolutely insightful and brilliant in so many ways. Um, what's exciting for you right now? What are you working on right now?
Well, I didn't mention that earlier when you asked me. Well, last night I just wrapped up a workshop that I just recently created. It's on fearless decision making, and it was a big success. I was so excited to see the impact I have made. So I do hope to host those in the future. However, May will be a busy month. I will be hosting a workshop at the Tarifa Nomad Base Conference. And then end of May to, I believe it's the beginning of June, I will be in Albufera as well, hosting a workshop at the Nomad World. So right now for May, it's conferences, workshops. I do hope to secure some more speaking engagements, and I see a few more podcasts in the near future. But right now, I also want to focus a little bit of time on building the workshops around clarity and confidence. So the fearless decision making is really the courage piece of my coaching, but I really want to develop a workshop as well to help people get more clear on their why and their values, and one on also what is holding them back, what limiting beliefs, and how to reframe those and overcome those. So it's going to be a busy summer, but for now, let's focus on the conferences.
Amazing, amazing. I might actually come to Portugal and say hi
I would
to
love
one of
that.
you. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. How can people reach out to you if they want to work with you, want to attend one of your workshops, or even one of your speaking events?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we can share contact details in the links here, but the easiest way is just go to my website, biancatate.com. That's the easiest way to remember. I do offer free 30-minute introductory calls, and this is an opportunity for people just to ask questions about coaching, ask questions about my approach. I always say finding a coach is like finding a therapist. You kind of need to vibe with the person. So it's a chance for you to ask me anything you'd like. Check me out, see if we're a good match. That's absolutely free. And then also, I'm just recently getting on building my Instagram, but that's Living Fearlessly Coach. And of course, on LinkedIn is where I post most of my content at the moment. So feel free to connect there as well.
And thank you so much for all of your knowledge, all of your insights. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here on our podcast, and I can't wait to see you again in one of the speaking events. So,
Seth, you're
yes,
such a pleasure. Thank you so much. It was an honor to be on your podcast. So thank you.
absolutely. Thank you so much, and I'll see you around.
Okay, thanks. Bye.